So if we go back to compliance and we split our compliance up into lung compliance and chest wall compliance, your lung compliance is determined mainly by the elastic tissues of the lungs and the surface tension within the alveoli. And the lungs naturally recoil inwards due to the elastin and collagen fibers and the alveolar surface tension, as we mentioned. The surface tension contributes significantly to lung recoil, and this is where surfactant becomes really important here. So surfactant's produced by type 2 pneumocytes, and I've linked a video in the description where we talk a bit more about surfactant, and its role is to reduce alveolar surface tension. And by reducing surface tension, it increases the lung compliance, it decreases work of breathing, it stabilizes the alveoli, and it prevents collapse. Without surfactant, the lungs become stiff and difficult to inflate, and this is seen in Neonatal Respiratory Distress Syndrome. Now, chest wall compliance reflects how easily the thoracic cage expands, and the chest wall includes the ribs, muscles, diaphragm, and abdominal contents, and anything that restricts chest wall movement decreases the compliance. So whenever I break this up, I break it up into bones, muscles, and skin. So when you think about bones, you want to be thinking about kyphoscoliosis. When you are talking about muscle, you might be talking about muscular dystrophies, or you think about obesity and pregnancy that will raise the diaphragm. And then when we talk about skin, I like to think of circumferential burns or tight surgical dressings that will decrease your chest wall compliance. And even if the lungs are normal, ventilation becomes more difficult because of the chest wall becoming stiffer as well. And you'll notice this in particularly obese patients where you try to ventilate them and you need higher pressures to achieve the same volumes compared to someone who isn't obese. Now, these are just sort of the specific things to each of those different compliances, but overall, to remember the respiratory compliance, the way I remember most of the determinants of lung and chest wall compliance is through a mnemonic, which is SVT GA PPV, so supraventricular tachycardia, general anesthetic, positive pressure ventilation. So the first S is absolute size. And this is because the neonate lungs are less compliant, and this isn't just because of less surfactant, but also due to the smaller absolute size, as larger lungs have a proportionally greater total volume change for a given change in pressure. And this is why we might talk about specific compliance when discussing comparison of compliance between an adult and a neonate, and I'll talk a bit more about this later. The first V is for volume, and this is volume of air in the lungs. And essentially at functional residual capacity, compliance is optimal. And then as we saw on the previous curves, whenever you're at the extremes of volumes and the compliance curves flatten out, so you lose the steepness of the compliance angle, then the compliance decreases. So extremes of volume, it decreases. T is for tension, and this is for surface tension, and this is referring to surfactant. G is for gravity. And this is because the compliance changes even from the apex to the base of the lungs. And you can superimpose this on our compliance curve that we did before by putting a pair of lungs sitting upright next to it. So with the apex being less compliant than the bottom of the lungs, and this is due to the weight of the lungs themselves, stretching the apical alveoli and compressing the lower alveoli. And there's a sweet spot you can see here where the compliance curve is steepest, where there's the most compliance within the lungs, and it's usually around near the base of the lungs. A is for anesthesia, and this is due to muscle relaxation decreasing the outward recoil of the chest wall. And if you're asked if this is increased by paralysis, the answer is no, and that's because maximal muscle relaxation to affect the chest wall has already occurred with a general anesthetic. So FRC, which will normally drop about 20% due to this loss of muscle tone, has already occurred, so muscle relaxant doesn't really change it further. The first P is for positive pressure ventilation and PEEP, and this is because increased pressures in the lungs will move the lung compliance up or down this compliance curve, especially PEEP, and there is this sweet spot on the steepest part where compliance is maximal. So if you increase PEEP, you tend to shift the lungs up the curve, and if you decrease it, you shift the lungs down the curve. The second P is pathology, and I think about emphysema versus interstitial lung disease, with emphysema creating lungs that are like a plastic bag that don't really take a lot of pressure to inflate, but equally their elastance is so low that they don't really recoil to a normal shape again once they're inflated. While interstitial lung disease is the opposite of this, where it takes a lot of pressure to inflate them, but they like to recoil back to their original position. So it's sort of like a fresh balloon that you've just inflated and then let the air out from. The last V is for volume of blood or fluid, and this is because venous congestion and pulmonary edema decrease the lung compliance as well.